Respiratory Syncytial Virus, or RSV, is a major source of infection in newborns, causing infection of the lower respiratory tract, and these infections can be very severe, causing hospitalization. So, as of the last couple of years, some new strategies have been developed to combat this, to try to protect the newborns from respiratory syncytial virus. So there are generally two strategies. One, vaccinate the mother while she is pregnant, and the antibodies will cross the placenta and protect the baby. And the other strategy is to deliver monoclonal antibodies to the baby when the baby is born. A recent study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association has demonstrated that it is very likely that the administration of monoclonal antibodies to the baby does seem to provide real benefits. While both strategies are effective, it appears that the delivery of monoclonal antibodies is a more successful strategy. So the study was done in France. It was a national study of over 42,000 children. And of those 42,000, about 480 ended up in the hospital. And of those 480, the majority, about 260 or so, were from the group whose mother was vaccinated. About 212 hospitalizations were from the group that received the monoclonal antibody. Now, what are these strategies really? Well, for the vaccination is with a particular protein from the RSV. The virus has a number of proteins on the surface, and one of those is the F protein, the fusion protein. Now, this protein is essential for the virus to enter cells. Of course, viruses must enter cells in order to replicate. And this protein is important in getting the virus into the cells. Now, it also appears that, or is also the fact, that this is the major target for neutralizing antibodies. The protein is really rather complex. It has a very big conformational change. Its shape changes dramatically when it goes through the process of the fusion. So, in order to stimulate the appropriate antibodies, what researchers have done is basically locked the fusion protein, the F protein, into its pre-fusion configuration. And that is then injected into the mother. The mother develops antibodies to that protein, and they are passed to the baby through the placenta. The second strategy is the passive immunization of the baby with monoclonal antibodies. So, what are monoclonal antibodies? Well, when we develop an immune response, we develop multiple types of antibodies to a particular target. What science can do is to basically isolate particular cells that are producing a particular antibody. Each individual clone of B cells will produce a particular antibody. So, scientists take a clone of these cells, they effectively immortalize it, and then those cells produce a particular specific antibody. It comes from one clone, and thus is called monoclonal, one clone. So these antibodies will target a very specific part of the F protein. They are injected into the baby, and the baby is then protected by receiving these antibodies that are generated in the lab. Now, so what are the results? Well, the results are pretty exciting. Either strategy is effective. The number of hospitalizations are reduced with either strategy, but it appears that the strategy of using the monoclonal antibodies seems to work a little more effectively. One is that a child that receives the monoclonal antibody will be about 75% as likely to be hospitalized as a child that receives the antibodies through the mother's immunization. So that's a benefit. It might not sound huge, but for each one of those parents, it's going to be a very big deal. So there are other benefits, and these are really in reducing the severity of the disease and the amount of intervention required at the hospital. A child that receives the monoclonal antibodies through the hospital rather than through the mother will be about 60% as likely to require things such as admission to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit. Additionally, the child will be about 60% as likely to require interventions such as ventilation or oxygen therapy. So it really appears that the strategy of using the monoclonal antibodies to protect the child against RSV seems to be more effective than the strategy of immunizing the mother. But as we said, both strategies are effective, and this is one study, but certainly more needs to be done to really confirm the veracity of these results. Regardless, it's really pretty exciting in that we have multiple strategies to protect children against this very severe lower respiratory tract infection. This, of course, is not to be taken as medical advice. This is simply to entertain and inform. I'm not a physician. I have a PhD, but I'm not a clinician. So if you have any questions, of course, you should see your clinician and have that individual inform you of what are the risks and so forth. Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.